Namaskar to everyone. My name is Nilesh Oak, and with me I have a young original researcher, Jeevan Rao, joining us, and we are starting a new series, I would call it. The title of that we have given as a Anuloma-Viloma. We will explore it as we progress. We'll tell you what it is, but we will also leave it to an extent for you to do the homework to figure out what this Anulom-Vilom is. Welcome, Jeevan Rao.
Namaste, Nilesh ji. Jai Shri Ram.
Jai Shri Ram. So the idea, at least my idea, Jeevan, behind it, and we did discuss it. So I would like to hear your thoughts also. The Anulom Vilom literally means Anulom is like, sort of going in the direction of the hair, say on your skin or a hand, and Viloma would be going in the opposite direction. In Indian classical music, we hear the word Aroha, Avaroha, everywhere going in one direction. Sare Gama Padani Sasani Dhapama Garesa, that's kind of a Aroha, Avaroha, Anuloma Vilom. The idea, the name that we came up with, the idea was to give our audience, specifically Indian audience, but not limited to Indian audience, the idea of how a true samvada or a vada should take place. That doesn't mean everyone is agreeing with each other and it's all a goody-goody stuff. No, it's not actually a goody-goody stuff. Okay. But there is no personal enmity. This is about going towards the truth. What is the truth as opposed to who is right? What is right versus who is right? That's one. The second one I had in my mind is to tell people, at least the curious ones and the seekers, how a research takes place, how original research takes place, how we begin with the problem, sometimes where we find the problems. And actually, once they understand it through our discussion, there are so many problems to solve. The one lifetime or multiple lifetimes are not enough. But how something begins from there, how actually research takes place. And it's not a cookie cutter model, because unfortunately, many people think it's a cookie cutter model. Like that's all the emails that I receive. The people want to be my shishya, they say, I want you to be my guru and I want to do original research. You never said that. Now you say it some places like, Guruji or something. But that's what it is, right? I mean, when you work at that certain level, a trance, you forget who you are, you forget the age differences, you forget the language differences, you forget the distance differences. And it is that amazing experience, and I would love to hear, so I won't keep on blabbering, but Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na Shochati na Kankshati, like you forget who you are and why you are doing this. You are just having a joyful ride. Yeah. So that's what we want to communicate through this. And we are going to grill each other. You will grill with your questions and you will grill my responses. I will grill you with the questions about the work that you have done, and you will respond with your whatever you want to say, and I'll grill those too. Before we get into that, what are your thoughts as we begin this Anuloma-Viloma series?
You have actually summed up the scope very well. So one thing I would like to add is, so usually what we see in our social discourse is people tend to question our inferences, right? The conclusions that we draw from our research. So through this series, what I am actually aiming to do is, I would like to question your background assumptions. So once the background assumptions are clear, then we can understand how or why you draw the conclusion that you drew at the end of your research. So that's what I am looking for through this conversation.
Very good. And so since you mentioned background assumptions, I would say, for example, very recently, I mean, the book is not out there yet, but you are an author now. I mean, officially, if we have to wait, we can wait until 2nd November 2022. People of this civilization, see, this is a civilization, Sanatano Nitya Nutana. It keeps on growing. It insists on the growth of knowledge. But they also have a Shraddha, which is the great asset of this civilization. So for many years, I mean, I don't know, I mean, you can tell us, but you have stated somewhere like at least 1500 years or something like this, we have stayed with a certain assumption of a Kali Yuga. and you are going to blow all those assumptions off, come 2nd November. So congratulations on your first book, and let this be the first of the many that come. So do you want to say something without going into divulging the details of it? Let that be the excitement for 2nd November, but something about your book and your journey, maybe.
Sure. First of all, I should thank you, Nilesh ji, for being the inspiration for me to start the project of this book, actually. So, originally, this book was actually planned as a two-part blog article. But then, as I started continuing studying the Mahabharata, just the contents grew and grew. And I remember on a call when I told you that now I have 70 evidence from Mahabharata. Should I display all 70 as a blog? Then you said, let's do one thing. Just start writing it as a book. Let's just publish it as a pamphlet or booklet if it does not cross us enough pages. So from there, the journey of book started, actually. So first of all, thanks to you. And then regarding the book contents, yes, the present Kali Yuga assumption or knowledge or tradition has been around for at least last 1500 years. But from where am I confident, or from where I am getting confident to challenge that tradition, is because I am just relying on Mahabharata. So Mahabharata is like straightforward, clear with its own take on Kali Yuga. So since I am just following the words of Maharishi Vyasa, I am pretty confident that I can face this 1500-year-old Kali Yuga tradition.
Okay.
And the book, the book originally actually had just Mahabharata references, around 100 Mahabharata reference. But then, as the writing progressed, what I thought was to make this book a one-step stop for everything and anything related to Kali Yuga. So now the book discusses Surya Siddhanta, Aryabhatiya, Yuga Purana, and it also has Purva Paksha of 10 plus Puranas. So if you are interested or curious to know about Kali Yuga, I think my book will answer your questions.
Yeah. And since I have read the book, okay, I had the privilege of reading the book. I was, as you said, partly was involved in some fashion. I would say not only that your book will provide the information, but unless people come to your book and understand it, they better not, I mean, at least the intelligent people better not open their mouth on the beginning of Kali Yuga. I mean, that is my assertion, after reading that book. It has come out very nicely. And so anyways, people actually, Ritvik told me that it's doing good on what you call the pre-orders or so. But, let's not ever judge the book on the number of copies people buy or number of copies. See, really important thing is that they read it, and because they can go to library, and a book in library can be read by thousands of people, the same book, but that they read it and more further they comprehend it. Quickly, I want to comment that you thanked me, and people will say, okay, what is this new thing? Is this a mutual admiration club? Okay. So what I want to say that, well, we respect each other. I mean, just not Jeevan and myself, but there are many other folks that there is no specific agenda. If there is agenda, it is Satyena Labhyas Tapasa Yesha Atma, in the search of the truth and just having that joyride. No other agenda. I personally, just now I had another session. We do not hold enmity. Actually, once you start, this is my experience. Once you start studying Bhagavad Gita or the Dharma tradition, any particular sampradaya, in fact, that is a litmus test. If your enmity and anger doesn't go away for individuals, then you are not on the right path of even the sadhana. Now, that is to be not confused with the abhinavesh. And I'm hoping, Jeevan, that in this series, we can show that to people, like, how we, because with Rupa Bhattiji and I, when we go into the conversations, we go totally like at each other, so to say, like blasting at each other. And we haven't necessarily blasted, but our one-on-one conversation, which is not on the public display, we have done this. And you will say, so, sir, why did you do that? And doesn't that make sense? Why did you not include it? It is to give people in a purely educational spirit, education, enlightenment. And in the process, if we can enlighten, if we can entertain, that's great. But first and foremost, this is not an entertainment show. But I think if those people who enjoy intellectual discussions, they are going to find this entertaining also. Okay, so that's my hope. So congratulations again. Go ahead. If you want to add something, then we can get into the fight.
Yeah, no, I am clear.
Okay.
I think, yeah, we have explained the scope pretty
perfect. So what we are going to do is, from the time duration perspective, for the benefit of our viewers, we want to limit ourselves to say 20 to 30 minutes. That's what people tell us. If it's anytime we try to cover something a lot, going over more than 30 minutes, more than 40 minutes, people don't find the time. They may start watching, they may not have enough time, they may not get a chance to come back to it. So much other stuff comes. Also, limiting ourselves to that 20-30 minutes allows us to cover one point at a time. So this can be used. Somebody said, oh, but today we are going to, we just as a preparation for this, we said, okay, we'll discuss archaeoastronomy or whatnot, because there is a lot of confusion, not only about archaeoastronomy, but even archaeology, and of course, astronomy. We'll discuss that. But if we limit ourselves to that 20-30 minutes, we can always call this what is archaeoastronomy, and that can become a good reference material for people. Okay, so with that, to you, and people will slowly learn what this is. Guys, we are learning as we go. Think of this as a warm-up episode, but a lot of exciting stuff is going to come. You will not able to stop watching. That's something, at least our goal is, our hope is. And with that, Jeevan, back to you.
Thank you, Nilesh ji. So basically, I want to ask you, or I want to challenge your assumptions, background assumptions related to Mahabharata dating, Ramayana dating, Surya Siddhanta, and so on. But before going that, let me go one step further. Let me dig one layer deeper. So let me just ask you about archaeoastronomy first. Okay, so what exactly is archaeoastronomy, and how is it different from astronomy?
How is it different from astronomy? Okay, and I will add one more question to it. Okay, and which is it different than archaeology? Okay, that's also I want to add. Not that you asked for that question, but I will add it. And I'm going to share, because we had done this quick discussion what we might discuss. So I created few slides. Because picture is worth 1,000 words, and we, by the way, we may not able to do this every time. I mean, that's given. Let me just do this. Okay, yeah, there. But here, because we were doing this first episode, and we needed something, and just make sure we got it. So actually, you sent me a couple of questions, or 3-4 questions, and I just wrote those down, and some material. So your question, what is archaeoastronomy? And you said, how is it different than astronomy? And I'm adding one question which says, how is it different than archaeology? The reason I'm adding this question, Jeevan, is because when I start with my research, discussion of my research, and show how I arrived at, say, date of Mahabharata war or Ram Ravan Yuddha, as if like people have some mental issues, they don't ask questions about what I have discussed at the end of my lecture anywhere. They will just say, okay, but what about archaeology? Have you found anything in archaeology? One important thing to realize, now I don't know if they understand it. Most don't understand it. If I gave a presentation on archaeoastronomy and showed how Mahabharata war happened in 5561 BC or Ram Ravan Yuddha in 12,209 BC, and at the end of it, I say any questions or any comments, and they go into archaeology, which means they have accepted everything that I have said. They are totally convinced, they have understood, they have no questions whatsoever. That is the assumption, whether they understand it or not. Because if they have a question about it, they should not jump into archaeology. That is changing a goalpost. It's a stupidity actually. Our asking question about archaeology is great, but when I'm saying, do you have any questions about what I talked for last 40 minutes? That's what they need to focus on. People don't. Okay, so I'm so glad you asked that question. Before coming to the kind of archaeoastronomy work I have done, I want to quickly show you there are different areas within archaeoastronomy also. Okay, for example, let's go to for a minute to Altamira caves. I don't know if you have heard those. They are in Spain. On a Spain, I had a opportunity to be there. This is now going back too many years, like 20 plus years. Almost like a border of Spain and France, somewhere there on the Spanish side. How old are, these, if we ask the question, how old are the celestial rashis? How old are the zodiacs? Okay, now that's a different subject. But the caves paintings are dated to 34,000 BCE, 20,000 BCE. Why I'm bringing this? Of course, I want to answer that archaeoastronomy, but also to see if we can wake up the sleepy Indian researchers, okay, who are stuck into 3000 BC, cannot go beyond 5000 BC, cannot go beyond 7000, 8000 years. And they think, well, that's how it is. No, that's utter nonsense. They are so lazy, they don't know. Around the world, things are found which are going back into thousands of years. This is one example. Now, people may question 34,000. Actually, they should question, because that will lead to growth of knowledge about the dating methods and so on. So quickly, I want to show you some picture, what that has to do with archaeoastronomy. It's not even very easy to see it. Like, there is a picture of a, what you call a deer-like creature, you may say. Like there are horses, there are bisons, so many. But if you look at this here, it may look like a horse. It actually like a deer, these are, so this is like a head of a deer. Think of it. These are what you call those horns that come up. Yeah. And then this is like a back like that. And these are legs, and going from like, it's as if like it's walking in this direction. There are many paintings, very beautiful paintings. Actually, now they stopped allowing visitors to go inside because of the visitors going there, and their moisture and humidity and breathing, the paintings are getting destroyed. Okay, so they stopped, and now they created alternate proxy site, like a, what you call, replica. But I could visit that, and I was with an archaeologist, by the way, when I was visiting there. On the top of this animal's deer's head, you see here, I don't know if you can see, but you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots here. Okay. Now, whoever did this, they have identified that as a with Pleiades or Kritika. Okay. Now, we don't have to go into this is right or wrong, but I'm saying if it is identified, and if it is true, assuming it is true, something very fascinating. Okay, which is to say, where the Kritikas are, and next to that is the Rohini Nakshatra, and that is the Taurus, the Taurian, in our zodiac, the Taurus, the bull, and above his head, the way the Taurus is shown is the Kritika, between his horns, something like this. So now these people said, so the knowledge of that area of the Rohini, Aldebaran, and imagining that as some animal like a bull or a deer or something, and on the top of his head like this Kritika. Is this 30,000 years old in Europe? Is this 20,000 years old in Europe? So now remember how on a sketchy ground this information is. I want people to understand this. Why I'm saying this? This is very fascinating information, but if you want to validate this, there is no additional source of knowledge that can be used to validate. But if it is coming from Spain, written by some European researcher, our Indian researchers, Indian academics, Indian common people consuming immediately will say, oh, so fascinating, it is there. And this is fascinating. I'm not saying it's not fascinating. They will accept it. But when a Indian will do a research and show it with a triangulation and quadrangulation, Shruti, Pratyaksham, Aitiyam, Anumanam, bringing from all sources, solving crossword puzzle, solving jigsaw puzzle, still our dull folks, folks of a dull intellect are like, nah, I mean, I don't understand it. Yeah, you don't understand. That is so obvious. You need to do something. So this is one aspect of archaeoastronomy, which is to say you may see a painting in a cave, okay? And you may look at the pattern with your current knowledge of the zodiac. You might say, hey, does this look like a Taurus zodiac with the Kritika on the top, which is how we see it today? And could this be this? And if you date it to 34,000, 20,000, that means, does that mean Europe, I mean, people, whoever were there in the Spain knew about the zodiac, the current 12 system zodiac back then? That's how you can draw the inference. Okay, this is one way. Now, to validate, there are not many other ways. Let's come to Kashmir Valley. Okay, the good and bad of archaeoastronomy, or peer-reviewed research, by the way. Okay, this is a paper. So they are claiming supernova meteorite impact in 5700 BCE in India. Okay, and a notification of that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a paper from TIFR, Professor Mayank Vahia. I have communicated with him. Of course, he is very much stuck into Aryan invasion, but that's a different subject. Okay, at the TIFR. Now I think he retired. Last time I knew, I saw him. I don't even have a chance to meet, but in Delhi at some common function we were. And now he's in either America or Europe or somewhere. But he worked at TIFR for a long time. We have communicated and so on. His group published a paper, with a few other researchers from northern India, like from Kashmir. This place is, sorry, what you are seeing in the picture is near Baramulla in Kashmir. Okay. And those structures, you see the circles and you see some pictures or images engraved into the rock. They took those images and you can see how they have tried to do it, possibly sun, moon, some animal, some hunter, some human being there. They tried to connect it, what it could be. I'm not going to the theory, but see, all that they have, Jeevan, it's very important to understand, all that they have is this stone. Yeah. With this picture. Based on that, they're saying, oh, this could be this could be sun, this could be moon, this guy might be referring to the star Sirius, and so on and so forth. And somewhere independently, I don't know where they found it, but they said, oh, there was also a comet that was seen. No, comets are seen all the time, and they tried to connect this two and said, hey, if that is true, it's a hypothesis. If assuming this is indeed representation of that apparition of the comet or whatever, it takes them to 5700 BCE. Now, how do you know that this is actually an astronomy thing? Assuming this is astronomy, how does it relate to the comet? I mean, which one is the comet? I mean, I don't know that, but that's how people make things. The reason I'm mentioning it is, again, Altamira is a well-known case. Again, this is from TIFR, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. Just the name sounds so impressive that people say, oh, wow, and then they go back to their life. Actually, I mean, what they have done is very impressive. Impressive in the sense, we should congratulate them, whether right or wrong, the quality, we are not discussing the quality of that research. Same thing with Altamira. But I am showing this to show, in a way, against the scientific standards or a logic, these are extremely poor kind of specimens of archaeoastronomy. That is my point. The reason is there is no additional evidence to validate this. I'm not undermining this. I'm just showing the, objectively speaking, the limitations of it. Quickly, ancient edifice. So I'm saying these are all archaeoastronomy, by the way. Now, what I'm showing you here is this is from Graham Hancock's book. I mean, the pictures are what I have drawn, but Graham Hancock, in his books, Fingerprints of Gods or Heaven's Mirror, and many books, he discusses this. Where his theory, again, we talk of statement of a theory. His theory is that all these ancient monuments, the big monuments, they are built to some astronomy plan by a very intelligent global civilization, okay, that is now lost. I mean, but he goes on so far so good. Actually, I would agree with that global civilization is a Sanatana civilization, I say. Again, my hypothesis. But after that, his road, his journey goes downhill. We will not go about that. Honestly, he has done a very fascinating work, okay, against all odds. But what I'm saying is, so what he has done, looking at the 3 pyramids of Egypt, this is like summarizing his multiple books in like 2 minutes. he has done a comparison, and he's not the first one or the only one, but definitely he has done a good job in bringing it to people's attention. This is the Orion constellation, the three belt stars, and this is our Mrugashirsha, by the way, or Nataraja, that Rupa Bhattiji talks about, and comparing those three stars with the relative positions of these three planets, three pyramids, which is to say a celestial equal to terrestrial. Somebody tried to map on the Terra what they were seeing in the sky. Okay. And this one is Angkor Wat in Cambodia, that complex. And if you look at the different temples, he has tried to make a case. And we are not going to go into if it's convincing or not, but they were trying to, as if they were trying to mimic the Draco, or in Indian astronomy, Shishumar constellation, to on the ground. Okay. Now, they tried to see when the Draco constellation looked like this, and when these three stars were aligning with the three pyramids, and he claims that they come and align at 10,500 BCE. So it's not like only they're talking of Egypt, they're talking about a global civilization, possibly something interesting happened in 10,500 BCE. And their plan was to build something to remember that event. Now, Cambodia's temple is what? Only 1,000-year-old. Yeah. But the plan was there somewhere in the thing. That is his theory. I'll not go into that. So that is one. And yeah, I want to stop there. Sorry. Give a chance for you to ask anything or critique.
Sure. This was wonderful, Nileshji. I got a lot of new information actually. So coming to Indian research field, who was the first one to attempt research of archaeoastronomy? I mean, if you know the answer, it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, actually, so I mean, there is always answer. The best answer is I don't know, right? That is also an answer. So to answer that question, and this was not rehearsed for our benefit of our audience. Like, I didn't know what Jeevan was going to ask, and my next slide will perfectly answer that question. No, I did not know that. So sometime we will not have a slide. Quickly, we don't know if there was somebody before and we have lost the records, then of course we won't know. In our recent times, I would say, from an archaeoastronomy, that perspective, the name that immediately comes to my mind is Lokmanya Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Okay. Of course, there were Lele Shastri and Shankar Balakrishna Dikshit and many others. But Lokmanya Tilak is the one who wrote two dedicated books on archaeoastronomy. One is Orion, which refers to that Orion three-belt star area, Nataraja and Mrugashirsha. And then the other one he wrote is Arctic Home in the Vedas. Again, what is contained there, what are the claims, are they right or wrong, is not the subject. But I was going to go there and come towards the Indian archaeoastronomy also. And today we may not have a time to go into archaeology. We will do that next time. But one thing that my good friend Jeffrey Armstrong, we were discussing, just like you and me are talking, but not being recorded, of course. So I was discussing, and he said, Nilesh, what I'm noticing with even his group that he works with, the Bhagavad Gita classes, and even his other friends, he said, your work is so impressive and so fascinating. But, it's like he gave a metaphor of like people are sitting there. They have never seen or heard about an aeroplane. They have not seen a landing strip, nothing. And suddenly a big jumbo jet comes and lands in front of them, and they have seen birds maybe, but they don't know what to make of this, because the foundation required to understand something that is not a bird, something made out of metals, and something that makes huge noise and uses the same fuel you use in your cars, can fly and safely fly and bring human beings, hundreds of them, 300, 400 of them. So suddenly you are changing people's existing knowledge base, and they are startled and they are puzzled and they are scared. And he said, hey, this is what you need to make them understand before you talk about the Ramayana or your Mahabharata research. And I completely agreed with him, and I thanked him. And so quickly, to give a basis for this, not that you asked the question, But this is what Tilak, Lokmanya Tilak or Lele Shastri or these people used. Now, they didn't necessarily articulated this, but it's very important for anyone who wants to understand archaeoastronomy, and especially in the context of Indian archaeoastronomy, because frankly, I just showed you the state of archaeoastronomy outside India. I will tell you, as much as it is impressive and as much as very hardworking people are working on it, it is actually a kindergarten. It's a kindergarten variety. Okay. And I'm not saying this in a downplaying way or in any fashion. That's a fact. Because whether it's Altamira caves or whether it's a Stonehenge circle or whether it is like, these complexes and trying to figure this out, there is no additional evidence to validate that. It's not their fault of the researchers. A very unique situation in the context of India is this. In fact, let me ask you that question. If we want to know the narration of the past, okay, now the answer is kind of given, but as a narration, like as a communication, what do we need?
Language is the first thing.
Right? Language, and it needs to be stable. For example, if you today ask how many of the people, even you can go to Greece and ask people there, how many of you speak ancient Greece? I mean, ancient Greek, and not even a single hand will go up.
Yeah.
Okay. How many of you? I have visited Greece, but not like gone on a business. Italy, I used to practically live there. Okay, on a business. And I mean, you ask, okay, how many of you speak Latin? I mean, they say, oh, I speak Italiano, which is very close to Latin. But no, Latin. No, I mean, some researchers, but otherwise Latin is not a spoken language. And that's why they want like the Sanskrit to be dead, but Sanskrit is not dead. I mean, yes, Indians have contributed to reduction of the Sanskrit. So one is you want a language that is both stable and capable. It has to be capable language, but because capable of describing something that was happening then in a writing in such a way that we can even understand today, and a stable language, so that whatever they meant then was directionally similar even today. So there might be some drift, but not so much drift that we don't even understand what they're saying. Then the second one we need is a stable timekeeping. Now that would have brought us to archaeology, by the way, because archaeology, and today we'll not talk, archaeology is a different type of clock. It's a relative time clock that they use. The stable timekeeping that Indians borrowed, and because of a sophistication of Indian astronomy is time. That is how beautifully they did it. And the third one, again, that comes from the language and using astronomy, and of course using other features too, where that's a long subject, but especially using astronomy as it relates to my work. They use that language, they use that beautiful, sophisticated Indian astronomy, they use the sophisticated, stable language, and wrote the contemporary events that were happening, okay, that now we go and study and try to figure out when they happen. So this is my answer to the kind of archaeoastronomy that I do. Okay, so these are the foundations. Do you want to stop here? Do you have another question, something, and we can close?
Yeah, so let's just take one more question and we will keep others for the next session.
Yeah.
So in archaeoastronomy, right, when you are researching on archaeoastronomy, I mean using archaeoastronomy, and you are researching some text, some body of text. So in that text, how to identify what constitutes a piece of evidence for archaeoastronomy?
Right. And we will take this. I mean, I'll give you a brief answer. We'll take that next time as a framework for a scientific framework of a scientific method, or what Nyaya Darshana calls Pararthanuman. How do you explain it to someone else? Of course, you use the same method to research, but when you are doing internally, it doesn't matter. Like say our sisters or mothers or ourselves cooking in the kitchen. Right, especially in the Indian context, but even outside, you say, oh, how much salt I should put, and they might laugh at us, I mean, now I cook, I mean, for many years I cook and I love to cook. So same thing, I can laugh at others. It says, well, just decide, how much vegetables are there, and, just use your judgment, that's enough. But there is a method to madness, like, why so much salt? Similarly, there is a method. So your question was, how do I decide what is evidence? Is that your
Yeah.
question? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe next time you start grilling me. Right now, you're still asking very polite questions, like say, I can say, thank you very much, Okay. Well, yeah. So Einstein's quote is very famous, very well known. He says, it is the theory that decides what can be observed. That's not to say you cannot observe other things, but they are not relevant. They are not contextual for your theory. So you want to start, the reason you do all this is not because you are bored with other things. Actually, many people do that, but that's the problem. You do this because you are excited about finding the truth, okay, or getting closer to the truth, approximation to the truth. And how do you begin? You can only begin with taking a tough problem that is not been solved. So in your case, for example, people are so confused about the Kali Yuga, or many are convinced, okay, on the, we can say, Pujya Buddhi, reverence, respect Buddhi, Shraddha Buddhi for 3102 BC. But then you say, where is it written? Or how did you arrive at that conclusion? They have nothing to say, right? I mean, that's possibly through your journey. Same thing with mine. So it is the theory that decides what can be observed. So first, once you see a certain problem, like say my case, Arundhati Vasishta or whatnot, or Bhishma Nirvana, you say something is not sounding right based on what everyone else has done to this day. Okay, something is not agreeing with it. And to solve that problem, you propose some solution, which is your theory. And once you define the theory, so I'll give one example and we can stop. So for example, in case of Mahabharata, that Arundhati walking ahead of Vasishta at the time of Mahabharata war. Now, why this is a problem? Because in our times, it is not walking ahead of Vasishta, it is walking behind. Also, the astronomy knowledge tells us that those star system is that two stars are so stable that they're not going to quickly within a few hundred years going to go backward, forward, something like this. It cannot happen. So that is a problem. And to me, I said, I don't want to go any further into the research of Mahabharata. That was my subjective choice, you might say. But it's not totally subjective. You have to find a problem that is not been solved. And this was a problem that was not been solved by others. So therefore, I took it and I said, well, when Vasudev is clearly saying Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishta, it has to be visual. And there are some folks who have called it, it's a psycho, and they have psychoanalyzed, like a Wendy Donnier and that whole gang, they have our Indic researchers, pretentious, I mean, even not pretentious, they are really pro-Indic in their mindset. But in terms of their scientific ability, they could not solve it. So they have psychoanalyzed. We will do that discussion some other time. So therefore, I propose a theory. Now, when I say I propose, I told myself, unless I can show in an astronomy speak as a visual demonstration that Arundhati could actually, in principle, walk ahead of Vasishta, and unless I can show that in antiquity, I'm not going to bother myself with studying anything else related to the astronomy evidence of Mahabharata. So the theory I formed is all astronomy descriptions, including therefore Arundhati Vasishta, are visual, factual descriptions of Mahabharata times, because that's what Vasudev is saying. And so then my goal was, so once I said this, now my goal is to show how Arundhati can be visually seen walking ahead of Vasishta. Now, as a possible scenarios, I explored everything, like Arundhati being north of Vasishta. So right now it is a north of Vasishta. So that cannot be ahead. Otherwise, people would have not found that as a problem. So I tried to see when it might have gone to the south, when it was the south of Vasishta. It is also east of Vasishta right now. So I said, is there a mathematical calculation I can do to see when it could be the west of Vasishta? Okay. And not to go into the details. So that's how I started exploring. But I want to see Arundhati walking ahead of Vasishta, and there should be a logical, scientific, visual, consistent explanation. So to answer your question, I went in different direction. The point is, you find a tough problem. To solve that, you propose a solution. You might propose multiple solutions, but then you test each of this solution. But once you decide this is the solution I want to try, that once, as soon as I say all astronomy descriptions of Mahabharata are actual, factual, visual observations, that does not only apply to Arundhati, that applies to everything astronomical in nature that would be there in Mahabharata text. I have no luxury of selectively eliminating something, which is what you will find as we discuss more, Mahabharata researchers do.
Yeah. Perfect. So, I mean, for viewers also, to you also, I just want to say that many folks confuse that you arrived at 5561 BC based on Arundhati Vasishtha observation. But as a avid reader of your book, I know that it only gave you a time frame, right? In fact, I would say more than Arundhati Vasishtha, it was Bhishma Nirvana which actually narrowed down the time interval.
Correct.
So now, actually, I will start the grilling, like a trailer for the grilling. So you said all astronomy observations are visual, factual observations, right? So how did you assume? As I said, I am going to challenge your background assumptions. So how did you assume the Arundhati Vasishtha is actually astronomical?
Okay, great. And if we go, then it will become longer. Excellent. That's a good, I would say, good segue for our next episode. Okay, so let me summarize. So, okay, that's fine, but that's a problem. And so, Nilesh, how did you assume? I mean, can you assume? I mean, first, don't you have to prove it? You cannot just assume things, right? I mean, you're not saying it, but there is one history professor in America, teaches at some college, and he has done a review of my book, and sometime we will do that through this series also, and send it to him. I'll send it to him, so whenever we do it. But yeah, that's a great question, because again, many people have that confusion. And again, when you are asking, I know it's not always your confusion, but we will, I'm waiting to grill you, and I want you to grill me. Absolutely. Again, for the benefit of our audience, we do some preparation so that at least we can define the scope for a given episode. But I want to assure you, and again, if you're not assured, that's not a problem. If you enjoy, you will watch. If you don't like it, you shouldn't watch. As simple as that. This is not about some commercial stuff anyways. Is that other than a certain subject, what Jeevan and I want to do is going to be all impromptu, just like there is no schedule thing. We will do some preparation so that we can do a justice to the viewers, like the PowerPoint that I prepared with a few presentation. So let's end on this note. Great. So my theory is all astronomy observations, descriptions of Mahabharata text are actual, factual, visual observations of Mahabharata times as embedded in the Mahabharata text. But how did I make that assumption? Also, how did I make the assumption that Arundhati and Vasishtha are actually stars? And those specific stars, and not a beautiful couple, with the name Arundhati and Vasishtha. We'll start from there. You remember that. We will pick it from there.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. This was a trailer for the audience.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeevan. And I'm looking forward to having this with you. As they say, Jivet Sharada Shatam, let these be hundreds of episodes, not just 100. Let these be hundreds of episodes. Okay. Namaskar.
Namaskar, Nilesh.